All right, guys, so I was going to do some more examples on this type 2 of solving rational expressions. So this is that type 2, trying to figure out how to make these not fractions anymore. So that's the idea with these types when they have two terms. I can't just cross multiply here. So I want to instead try to get rid of the fractions altogether. So I look for a least common multiple. So between x minus 2, 5, and x minus 2, the least common multiple in this case is 5 times x minus 2. So that is my least common multiple. So that, it's basically what can all the bottoms become. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to use that and multiply that to each of these terms. So I'm going to do 5 times x minus 2, 5 times x minus 2, 5 times x minus 2 to all three terms. Now in this case, once I do that, there's going to be some canceling that I can do. This x minus 2 gets to cancel here. This 5 gets to cancel there. And then finally this x minus 2 can cancel here. Take a minute to see what we just did. We multiplied the tops by that least common multiple, and we were able to cancel the tops and bottoms. So what I'm left with in this case is 5 times x. Here, the 5's cancel, so I'm just left with x minus 2. Here, the x minus 2's cancel, so I'm just left with 2 times 5, which will give us 10. So now at this point, I'm going to solve this. Combine these two. So it'll be 6x minus 2 equals 10. I'm going to move this 2 over. And then I'm going to divide by 2, or 6, sorry. So x is going to be 2. So everything seems really good, except x equals 2 in this case. 2 minus 2 is going to be 0. So remember, we can't have 0 in the denominator, so this does not work. So there's actually no solution for this problem. But this is the gist of that type 2, that we want to try and get rid of all the fractions by multiplying by a least common denominator. So this is similar to probably the last couple questions on your test review in the last section we did. So I'll do another example here. Now this one's a little bit strange because the middle number here isn't a fraction at all. So just to remind you guys that we just put that as like 1 over 1 then as a fraction. So it still does need to be a fraction because we're working with those. So I'm going to work through this one. So again, I'm going to put this over 1. So it becomes a fraction. Now my common denominator, x minus 7, 1, and then this whole thing, I don't want to multiply these two together because that's going to be a mess. So when I see this, I'm going to try and factor it. So I'm going to see if I can factor that at all. Because it's a quadratic. So this is a little bit trickier one than the top one. So I want to multiply to get x squared. That's where my x and x come from. I want to multiply to get 14, but add to get negative 9. Multiply to get 14, add to get negative 9. 1 and 14, 2 and 7. But since this is positive, they both need to be negative. So a negative 2 and a negative 7. So now in this case, my least common multiple is just x minus 7 and then this x minus 2. I don't need the 1 because 1 times anything is just itself. So this is what I'm going to multiply all the tops by. This is my least common multiple. So I'm going to do that to all the tops of these fractions. So that's what I'm multiplying to all the tops. Now I can do some canceling. The x minus 7's cancel here. Here nothing cancels because there's no denominator. Here the whole denominator cancels with everything up on the top in the red. So what I'm left with here is this 3 and then the x minus 2. Here I'm left with this whole thing, so I'll deal with that in a second. And then here I'm just left with the 8. So again, I got rid of all the fractions by multiplying by that least common multiple. Do some FOIL here. Good news is I know what this is FOILed. I have it up here already, but I'm still going to use it. So this is going to be a negative 6x. And then this is going to be 8. So I combined like terms. Now what I noticed here is if I want to make this equal 0, if I subtract 8, it's going to equal 0. So now I'm ready to factor. I can take out an x. So my two answers are x equals 0 and x minus 6 equals 0. So x ends up being 6 as well. Now, if I go to try, so those are my two answers. If I go to try to substitute them back in, neither of them make the denominators equal 0. So 0 minus 7 is just negative 7. This would end up being 14. If I check the 6, this will be negative 1. This would be like 36 minus 54 plus 14. It's fine. So the two answers are fine the way they are. I hope that helps a little bit. I will post this, and then if you still have questions, let me know. I'd be glad to talk about it more. Thanks. Have a good day.